I'd like to say thank you to all of you for joining me today. My name is Mark Jacobson, and I've been working as a tour guide now for over 35 years. I work locally for Day Tripper Tours. I've been with them for 12 years. I'm also a certified member of the San Diego Professional Tour Guide Association. So hello to everyone and welcome. Thank you very much for your support. I wanted to mention, if you enjoy today's walk, that I do these every Wednesday. Next Wednesday I'm doing a mystery tour. It's going to have a patriotic theme, and that's going to be a free tour. I'm also doing a tour on Sunday for Day Tripper Tours called The Other Side of Coronado. We're going to be seeing some really nice homes. We're going to be seeing some great skyline views of Coronado. The new ferry landing, we're going to see that. That's also where the aircraft carriers are. North Island Naval Air Station, so I'll tell you all about the history of that side of the island. So that's going to be fun. And so, but anyway, I do these every Wednesday, so just remember that, same time. If you have not already liked me on Facebook, that's the best way to keep up with what I do, is to like me on Facebook. Please feel free to share my page with your friends. The word of mouth is always the best way for people to hear about my tours. I do have a YouTube channel. I put a lot of new videos on my YouTube channel. And then also I do have a website, and they're both Mark's Delicious Adventures. So thank you very much again for your support. And although most of these tours are free, do know that I do work for tips, and so you can leave a tip on PayPal or Venmo using the links on your screen there. If you kind of explore, depending on what device you're using, you can look for the link for PayPal and for Venmo. And also there's a map link there as well, so you can see what today's route is going to be. So we're going to be going about an hour and 30 minutes on our tour today. You can follow along on the map that I mentioned. Better to watch these tours always on your computer or an iPad rather than your phone. But if you are stuck with the phone, I would recommend you turn it sideways, landscape horizontally, so that you can get a better picture. If you do have a connection problem, the best thing I can say is just try to refresh or maybe sign back in. Sometimes people lose connection. A lot of times the problem can be on your end if you don't have a very fast BPS speed, and so you might want to check with your internet provider if you're having a problem with the connection, especially if you don't see anybody else really complaining about it. So, but if you lose the feed completely, just go back to the start like you did when you signed on this morning. So on today's tour, we're going to be exploring the other side of Old Town. We're starting up here on Presidio Park, and we're going to be working our way down the hill and south. We're going to end up down on San Diego Avenue, sort of over by El Campo Santo Cemetery. And so we'll make our way kind of from north to south. I'm going to be pointing out some of my favorite restaurants along the way, public art, shops, historic sites. We're going to see some beautiful Day of the Dead decorations at Fiesta de Reyes. That's probably going to be the highlight. So with that, let's get started. So what we're looking at here behind me, this is the Junipero Serra Museum. And of course, Junipero, however you want to say his name, tomato. He was the padre, of course, that accompanied the original Spanish soldiers here to start the mission in 1769. He founded 9 of our first missions. We're going to be talking about him later. 21 missions here in California. This was the very first one. So let's back up a little bit. Gaspar de Portola. Well, let's back up even further. Let's back up to Juan Cabrillo. King Carlos III, back in the mid-1500s, had heard about an expert sailor, Portuguese sailor, that was living in New Spain, which we know as Mexico today. And he wanted to hire him, Juan Cabrillo, to sail up what is now the Baja coast on up into California, because, of course, this was uncharted territory. And so in 1542, Juan Cabrillo sailed up here in the San Salvador ship and landed on what is now Point Loma, planted the flag for Spain, traveled on, went all the way up to Monterey before he turned around and came back wintered in the Channel Islands, where actually he met his fate, but that's a whole nother tour. But in any case, that was when San Diego was first discovered for the Spanish. And so about 60 years later, there was another sailor, Sebastian Vizcaíno, that came here in 1602, 60 years later, after Juan Cabrillo. And he planted another flag and called it San Diego. Our original settlement was called San Miguel. You know, back then the Spanish explorers always named their settlements after the feast day of the saint, wherever they landed. So it just so happened that when Juan Cabrillo landed, it was the feast day of San Miguel, and so he called this San Miguel. And when Vizcaíno landed in 1602, it was the feast day of San Diego. So San Diego stuck, and that is who we are today, of course. So let's fast forward up to about 1769. There were rumors going on that the English, the Russians were sailing up and down the coast here and thinking about taking this land because Spain had not settled anywhere along the coast. A lot of that was due to the fact that at the time, you know, they were looking for like the Northwest Passage to China. They were looking for things like gold and spices. They didn't find any of that along the coast here in California, and so they never settled. But then after they heard all these rumors about the Russians coming up into this area as well as the English, they thought, well, we better send a party out here to settle. And so in May of 1769 is when Gaspar de Portola and also Junipero Serra came here, and they settled atop Presidio Hill and built the very first Presidio or fort, and then just a few months later the first church or mission. And so what we're looking at here basically is a replica of kind of what a mission would have looked like. And of course this building has been sitting here since 1929, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this building, which is really a museum that's sort of meant to look like what, you know, the original missions would have looked like back then. So let's start walking here a little bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more history and point out a few things to you. So as you can see, if you look out here, we are high up on top of a hill here. And so the Presidio had a commanding view of San Diego Bay and the Pacific Ocean. You can see Mission Bay, the San Diego River from here, and just beyond that would be the Pacific Ocean. And so they liked this location because they were high enough up that they could see potential intruders, and it was also flat enough to build on. And just below us you can kind of see a yellow wall. That would have been there was a square there where the Presidio was originally built, sort of just below where we are now. And so yeah, it was flat enough to build on up here, but yet it was steep enough to allow for protection from attack. And also the river used to come through here. The course of the river, of course, was changed when they built the El Capitan Reservoir in the 1880s. And now, of course, the river goes straight out to the ocean. But it used to kind of wind around through the backside of Old Town, and it emptied into the bay. And so just below us would have been where the San Diego River used to come through. So this is a great location. They were close to the river for drinking water. But this was the very first European settlement on the West Coast, 1769. And you know, at that time, San Diego was unexplored northwestern frontier area of New Spain, as this area was called. And you know, a really interesting thing about this is that Spain controlled this land for almost 300 years. If you really think about it, from 1542 to 1821, and then Mexico had it for about 25 years. And then since then, Treaty of Guadalupe in 1848, this has been part of the United States. So we've had it less than 200 years, and it was part of Spain for almost 300 years. So that is why we have all these Spanish names in California, because of course we were part of Spain and then part of Mexico. So let's start walking this way here, and I'll point out a few different things to you. This is kind of interesting. They've got a plaque over here. It talks about two different expeditions here. The very first expedition came in March of 1769. They did not stay. The second expedition, led by Portola and Serra, you can see their names right here, was 2 months later, May 15th, 1769. And so that was the original settlement then that was started here. And so let's keep going here. I'll point out a few things to you that are kind of interesting. This here this is a wine press that was a gift from the Spanish island of Majorca. Saint Junipero Serra's birthplace, that's where he's from. And this was given to the city of San Diego for their bicentennial in 1969. So this is a similar presses were used at some of the other California missions. But you know, we have the Spanish missionaries, of course, to thank for our abundant wine industry here in California. They brought over grapes from Spain, planted them here, and that is really the birthplace of the wine industry in California. So now this is the backside of the Serra Museum, and you can look out here. We're looking down at I-8 here, and so kind of noisy for me anyway, probably not for you. But back in the day, Mission Valley, you know, really didn't get developed until the 1950s. If you look at old pictures of Mission Valley before like the 1950s, this was all dairy farms here. This would have been the northern edge of San Diego. But then, of course, it started getting developed in the 50s and 60s. They built the freeway through here, also Mission Valley Shopping Center. But this is an amazing viewing point. If you look off this direction here, this area, of course, that we are located at is called Spanish Landing, and in September 28th, 1542, Spanish explorer Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo became the first European to visit San Diego Bay. So just below us would be Spanish Landing. Also, this was the site of the Kumeyaay village of Cosoy, and so when the Spanish landed here, of course, they were a party of over 100 people. There were over 5,000 Kumeyaay, or Digueños, as the Spanish called them, that took up residence in this area. Down where you see all these trees down here would be where the San Diego River is, and you notice how straight the course is now. The river never used to go straight out to the ocean. It used to wind around and then empty into the bay. But they changed that, with the building of El Capitan Reservoir in the 1880s, and now it goes straight out to the ocean, which was a good thing because it was dumping sediment into the San Diego Bay. And of course, when the Navy moved in, they had to dredge the bay in order to make it deeper. So it's a good thing that the river doesn't empty into the bay anymore, because they would have to continue to dredge. Let's see here. Of course, this area down below us is also very prone to flooding because of the river, and it was very much prone to flooding back in the day, of course, before the El Capitan Reservoir and the dams were built further up the river. So there was a time back in 1916 when they had 20 days of rain, and San Diego was kind of cut off from the rest of the state. They had hired rainmaker Charles Hatfield, and he was credited and blamed for the torrential downpour. And so let's see here. So this whole area down below, this was a source for a lot of crops, a lot of food that was grown by the Kumeyaay Indians, and of course the Spanish who hired a lot of the Kumeyaay Indians to work for them. And of course, over the years then, river preservation has been part of the city of San Diego's efforts. Also, I should mention that the original mission, we'll start walking here, the original mission that was built here along with the Presidio was just built just a couple of months later. So In 1769, Junipero Serra founded the first mission or church along with the Presidio, so they were really side by side, sort of down below us right here. And it was the first of California's 21 missions, the first of 9 missions that Junipero Serra actually oversaw himself. So you see the Joshua tree right here in front of us. This property is planted with both native and non-native species of trees. You don't usually see Joshua trees in this part of San Diego County. You usually see them more towards Riverside and up at Joshua Tree National Park and along I-15, but kind of related to the yucca tree. So I love the Joshua trees. So this is a nice plaque here that talks a little bit about the dedication of this museum. George Marsden, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of George Marsden. He actually bought this site, Presidio Park, in 1907. And by that time, of course, it had fallen into ruins and it had just been sitting here for about 70 years. And he thought, you know, it needed to be preserved. And so he bought this site and tried to get the city to buy it, first of all, but they didn't want to buy it. So he bought it and eventually ended up donating it to the city. And then he had this building built. He hired William Templeton Johnson. William Templeton Johnson did the Museum of Art in Balboa Park and also the old post office downtown. He's a pretty well-known architect at the time. But yeah, he hired them to build this building, which is called the Junipero Serra Museum. Again, it was meant to look like what the missions looked like at the time. But this is actually not only a museum that talks about the early days of the Spanish settlers that came here, the colonists, but it's also an active excavation site. And so when you go inside, you see things that they have excavated from the original. Okay, so now we got to make our way down the hill without tripping. So I've got a few more things I was going to tell you about Junipero Serra. Like I said, he founded the very first mission here, the Mission San Diego de Alcala, just a few months after the Presidio was established. And the Presidio itself was a crude wooden fortification initially, and they had a couple of cannons, and eventually it was rebuilt into an adobe wall, and they added several more cannons. We're going to see the wall a little closer just ahead of us. I wanted to mention the flags right here. These are the flags, of course, of the countries that have contributed to the settlement of San Diego. This first flag, of course, is the flag of Mexico, and then you've got the flag of Spain, and then you've got the Kumeyaay flag, Kumeyaay Nation, and then, of course, the United States flag. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the different periods of history in San Diego. Let's make our way over this way towards the fortification, the adobe wall. So you can see that yellow wall in the distance. That would kind of goes behind. So it's a square down the hill. So you can see that the Junipero Serra Museum kind of sits above where the Presidio used to be. So this is a nice view. Very popular place for weddings, and especially this area up here where you've got the columns, a lot of wedding pictures. They even open up the top sometimes for weddings. Of course, all of it is closed right now due to COVID. So we'll make our way down the hill. This would have been the original site of the Presidio, and then within the walls of the Presidio would be the original mission. And so when they, like I said, when they rebuilt the site, the Serra Museum, they built a little ways further up the hill. And so what I haven't told you is that the original mission that was built here in 1769 actually moved only 5 years later. They moved 6 miles inland. Kind of, you all heard of Mission Gorge Road. It's kind of over there, just off the 8, east of Old Town. And they have rebuilt that mission, but the original mission was moved five years after it first opened. And some of the primary reasons for that were military personnel. They had some situations there where military personnel, the Spanish military, were accosting the native women, and so that was one of the issues. Another issue was they needed to be closer to the Kumeyaay settlement, which was upriver, close to 6 miles upriver. It was more of an open area with fertile land right by the river. So here's a nice statue of Father Junipero Serra. This is called the Padre. And so Arthur Putnam is the artist. He also did another one that we're going to see over here in just a minute called the Indian. But this was given to San Diego Historical Society by the Scripps family. You know all about the Scripps family, very prominent local family. So yeah, this is called the Padre. So anyway, yeah, they moved the mission because there was more land available to farm and raise livestock. Plus, they were closer to the Kumeyaay settlement where they could get needed workers. As of 1783, about 14 years after the Presidio was founded, there were 54 troops stationed here at the Presidio and a total of about 126 colonists in comparison to the Kumeyaay Nation, which is 5,000. And so one of the reasons why they built these fortifications to begin with is that right when they arrived, they were attacked by Indians, and so they were worried that, they're worried for their safety. So they put up these walls in order to safeguard themselves. And so, if you know anything about our history, we can move up here a little ways closer to the cross here. Of course, there was the Spanish-Mexican War in 1821, where Mexico won independence from Spain. And let's see here. Let's get up to the cross. So yeah, 1821, right about that time, the Spanish-Mexican War ended, and Mexico took control of this land for about 25 years until 1846, and finally the Treaty of Guadalupe in 1848 gave this land to the United States. The interesting thing, though, about the Presidio is this area was an active military garrison for over 50 years. And when the Mexicans took this over, it was used as the governor's palace for the new Mexican governor. And it fell into ruins then in 1835 and fully gone by 1837. Because what they did is when they decided that they were just going to abandon this site, people started taking bricks, adobe bricks, all that kind of stuff, and they went down the hill to what is now Old Town State Historic Park, and they started building structures down there for the new pueblo or town. And so that was around about 1837 then, when this became part of Mexico, that they were building that town down there, which is now Old Town State Historic Park. So you see brick here. This is a brick cross, and this is kind of to honor Junipero Serra. This is the first place he planted the cross for Spain when they came here and settled in California in 1769. Okay, so let's continue on here. This is where it gets really tricky, right? If Brianna can make it through this section of the tour without falling down the hill, then we'll be good to go. I tell you, we've really got a nice day here today too. It's a nice breeze coming off the water here. We're going down a pretty steep hill. Luckily it's paved though, so you okay, Brianna? I'm here to catch you. So I just wanted to take you over here real quick. We're not going to go across the highway here because it's just not really worth the effort. But I wanted to show you a statue of the Indian that I was telling you about. So this is probably the best view that we're going to get right here. So, and this road right here is surprisingly busy, and it's not at all pedestrian friendly. So, but this one's called the Indian, and again, it's by Arthur Putnam, and it was given to the San Diego Historical Society by the E.W. Script family. The Kumeyaay Indians, of course, were the primary Indians here. They say they existed in this area up to 10,000 years ago. Of course, today, San Diego County has the distinction of having more Indian reservations than any other county in the United States. We have 18 Indian reservations. The thing is that in terms of population and area, the reservations are pretty small. And only 12, well, I shouldn't say only, 12 of the 18 reservations are Kumeyaay related. And so let's continue on here. It's a lot easier to zoom out than it is to zoom back in. Here, maybe I can do it for you. Sometimes you have to do it with two hands. There we go. Yeah, we're working with a gimbal, and there's functions on the gimbal that doesn't work with Facebook Live, so you have to do it the old-fashioned way when you're zooming in and zooming out with your fingers. And it's a little tricky to zoom out with your fingers, but it's fairly responsive. But then when you have to unzoom, you almost have to, do it with two hands. So we're kind of taking the scenic route down here through Presidio Park. We'll take you right through one of the fortification walls. So you can see, if you kind of pan around here, that the original walls for the Presidio, this would have been the west wall right in front of us here, and then you've got the south wall, and then up towards the top of the hill there would be the north wall. And so this whole area here, this whole square, would have been where the original Presidio would have been built, and then within the Presidio would have been the mission or the church, which, after Junipero moved out of here and moved inland 6 miles to build a new mission, they still did have a chapel here. And so the chapel was used by the soldiers to go to church on Sundays, and so they didn't have to go all the way inland to the mission to hear services. So we'll keep going. Now this is where we really need to pay attention, because we're going down some stone steps here, so it gets a little tricky. Not only are you going down steps, but there aren't any handrails, and they aren't regular steps. They're just stone steps, so kind of have to be careful here. Okay, well, we're just about down. We got one more little section here that we have to get down, and then we'll be pretty much down on flat land. Okay, so off we go here. So we've got a few blocks here to walk before we get over to Old Town proper. We're going to go by the Presidio Golf Course here in just a moment. But while we're making our way over there, I thought I would tell you just a little bit about the Mexican period, because pretty much everything during the Spanish period took place on top of the hill that we just came from. Pretty much all of the stuff in the Mexican period 1821 or 1821 to about 1846 took place down here in their new pueblo or town. And then, of course, after the Treaty of Guadalupe in 1848, this was all part of the United States then. So, yeah, Newtown, I shouldn't say Newtown. This all started to develop then after the Treaty of Guadalupe. 1850 was, of course, when San Diego became a city, and that was also when California became a state. And so, and Old Town really prospered then. The new settlement down here for about 50 years, from 1820 to 1870. That was San Diego. If you ever get into the visitor center in Old Town, you can see a kind of a miniature village that they have created circa 1872 that shows what San Diego looked like as a town back then. Would have had a population of about 2,000. Downtown, as we know of downtown right now, downtown San Diego, did not exist. San Diego was just Old Town. That's it. 2,000 people. So what happened in Old Town was there was a big fire in 1872 that burned down a lot of buildings. And just a few years before that, there was a man by the name of Alonzo Horton, who had just come to San Diego from San Francisco, and he bought a whole bunch of land downtown, what is now downtown. He called it Newtown, or Horton's Addition. And this is around about 1867. He bought 960 acres at 28 cents an acre, and because he thought that downtown would be the future because of its proximity to the bay. He promised to dredge the bay to make it more deep, to build a wharf. He did all of those things. And so when Old Town basically burned to the ground in 1872, a lot of people decided, instead of rebuilding here, let's go down there because that's the future of San Diego. So the focus really shifted after that fire in 1872, and present-day downtown sort of became the new center of San Diego. So, yeah. So we are making our way here. Uh-oh, somebody's not happy. This isn't exactly the most scenic part of the tour here, walking along this street, but we're very close to Bazaar del Mundo, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. You guys have all heard of Diane Powers, I'm sure, right? Diane Powers. She's the lady that had Casa de Pico, Casa de Bandini restaurants in Old Town. She still has the Bazaar del Mundo, which is just ahead of us, a really nice shopping area. She still has Casa Guadalajara here, a restaurant. But of course, Casa de Pico was the really popular one. She lost her lease in 2005 to Delaware North. Actually, it was kind of her choice because they upped the price of the lease, and she thought it was too much, and so she chose to leave. And Delaware North came in here and took over operations, and of course it's never been the same since. But she did stay on, and she's got a couple of places that have not left the area. And one of my favorite places to shop is Bazaar del Mundo, which is just around the corner here to our left. This is several boutiques under one roof, and if you're looking for something a little bit nicer, you can go into a lot of these tourist shops and sort of find junk, but this is definitely not junk. This is some really well thought out stores. So here's the Bazaar del Mundo shops here, and you can see the main entrance here. But yeah, this is they kind of offer distinctive items from all over the world. They have the best of Mexican folk art. They have a Guatemala shop that specializes in fabrics. They have a women's clothing line called Ariana. They have the gallery that features arts, crafts, jewelry. They have a kitchen shop in here, and then they have Laurel Birch, the artist Laurel Birch. They have a lot of nice art by her here, and it's kind of like 7 stores in one. Very, very nice shopping. We can probably peek inside real quick. Makeshift Day of the Dead. And the yellow flower, of course, is the marigold, which is the Aztec marigold that grows, in the wild down in Mexico and Latin American countries. But I'll tell you more about that, of course, when we get over to Fiesta de Reyes. But this is pretty cool how they've done that. Little art piece, that's pretty cool. They did that all in tin, it looks like, metal. Pretty cool, huh? This you see is nicer stuff that has been hand selected and brought here. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this place, Bazaar del Mundo it's called. And we'll continue walking. But yeah, the gallery there, it's got jewelry in there. You could spend a lot of time and a lot of money here. Definitely. So and just across the parking lot over here to my right would be Casa Guadalajara. This is also a Diane Powers restaurant. It's the only one in Old Town now that she owns. I think for a lot of people that live locally, this is kind of everybody's favorite restaurant in Old Town. They have a really nice patio back here. We're kind of on the back side of it. But yeah, she also had Casa de Pico here, and as well as Casa de Bandini. But she lost her lease to Delaware North. So, eventually Delaware North lost their lease too. And so here's the patio here. So they hired a guy by the name of Chuck Ross. Chuck Ross, I'm sure you've heard his name before if you're from San Diego. He's a local turnaround specialist, they call him. And in 2008, Delaware made a deal to turn over operation of this concession to Chuck Ross. And so for Delaware North, they kind of won the battle, but they lost the war. And Chuck Ross continues to have ownership in this, and our ownership in what was Casa de Pico. We're going to see that in just a minute. But Casa Guadalajara is still Diane Powers. So we're going to go across the street here in just a minute to see this whole new park that they are building right now. And this is the new Kumeyaay Park. And we'll get a better view of it here in just a minute. We got to get across the street here so you can get over here to the opening. Okay. This gives you a little bit of a view. It looks like they're doing quite a bit of landscaping work here. But if you're wondering what used to be here, it used to be the Caltrans District 11 office. So that was demolished. And so this is what's called the new Kumeyaay Park. The San Diego River used to come right through here. And so it's kind of meant to showcase and tell about the Kumeyaay culture. So this would have been, the settlement along the river here that the Kumeyaay had. So it's going to be interesting. It's so much better than the Caltrans building. and it'll add to the already 29 acres of Old Town State Historic Park, which is everything to our right now. So yeah, Old Town State Historic Park, everything to our right would be Old Town State Historic Park, 29 acres. From about 1910 to 1960, there were various restorations that took place down here in the Pueblo, or this was the Mexican town that I was telling you about, such as Casa de Estudillo, which is kind of the main adobe, one of the oldest structures, and the old adobe chapel. They founded the park in 1968, Old Town State Historic Park, and it was meant to showcase a period of San Diego's history, a 50-year period of San Diego's history from 1820, the Mexican period, to the early American period, 1870, so about 50 years. And so it's supposed to recreate that time period. 6-block area, 29 acres, contains original adobe buildings. Oh, I should mention, I don't know, across the way here you can see that little tiny adobe house. I don't know how that shows up on the video, but that is actually the oldest adobe house in San Diego. That is now the pro shop for Presidio Hills Golf Course. And there's some speculation as to how old that is, but it's been, some say it dates back to 1810. SOHO, Save Our Heritage Organization, says it dates back to 1817. And then if you look up at California Historic Landmarks, it's Historic Landmark number 74. They say it dates back to 1821, which would make it, in all three cases, make it older than any of the other adobes in Old Town. So we're going to go into the Fiesta de Reyes. This is dining, shopping, and live entertainment. I'm going to have to put my mask down here. So there are 2 authentic Mexican restaurants here. There's about 20 unique shops. Here on the right-hand side, this very first area, this is Rose's Tasting Room, and they feature all local wines and beers. And so, like if you come here and do wine tasting, they do like a 4-flight wine tasting, 4-flight beer tasting. They feature local craft cocktails. They also have Los Muertos themed bottles here. Wines from Napa. I don't know if they're open. No, they're not. But let me see if we can see one of those. Oh yeah, here's one of their bottles. So these are Los Muertos themed or Day of the Dead themed wine bottles, wines from Napa. And you can use those, reuse those as lights actually. So they've got a whole line of those Day of the Dead themed bottles here. So very cool. So I mentioned to you this restaurant that we're walking through now is called Casa de Reyes, and this is the old Casa de Pico restaurant, and so that Diane Powers had, that used to be so incredibly popular. This is really fun here if you want to have get themed tiles. They have a real fun tile shop here. And this whole complex is called Fiesta de Reyes. So we'll go in here real quick. So you can see some of the decorations here that the restaurant has for Day of the Dead. And over here they've got a stage. Of course, Day of the Dead is November 2nd, so it's come and gone. I was here this weekend and there were a lot of people. They did have some entertainment going on the stage. They had folklorico dancers that were dressed up as calaveras statues. You can see some of the cute little Day of the Dead calaveras or skeletons decorated. You can see the Spanish dancers, bolero, very cute. So yeah, this is a nice little stage that they do performances on, but this is exclusive to the restaurant, Casa de Reyes. So we'll come back around here. Look at this. You wouldn't even notice this unless this is a plant person. So yeah, if you ever come here and you have lunch or dinner, they have a lot of really good things here. And the restaurant really has improved a lot. I know that after Casa de Pico, a lot of people didn't want to come here because they said it went downhill. But it's gotten a lot better. And some of the popular items here, they have great grilled skirt steak. They've got a carnitas platter that's really nice. Fajita platters, enchilada platters, chicken mole poblano, the national dish of Mexico, is another one that they do. But we're going to show you some really great Day of the Dead decorations here. They were very restrictive about letting people in here on Saturday when I was over here. So you see all of these beautiful costumes that they've decorated the skeletons up with, the colorful faces, the hats. I even like looking at their hands, you know, it's so cool how they've done them. But I'll tell you a little bit about the Day of the Dead, or Dia De Los Muertos, is a Mexican holiday that's celebrated in Mexico and Latin America. And it's associated with the the Catholic celebrations of All Saints Day and All Souls Day. So it's a time when family and friends gather to pray and to remember friends and family who have died. And it's commonly portrayed as a day of celebration rather than a day of mourning. And there's some speculation as to whether it's indigenous, pre-Hispanic, or whether it was brought in by the Spanish. But nonetheless, it's become a national symbol, and it's taught in the nation's school system, typically asserting a native origin. So some of the traditions that are connected to Day of the Dead, they build altars called ofrendas, offerings. They honor the deceased using calaveras skulls. Also Aztec marigolds. We can see over here we've got roses, it looks like, but typical would be Aztec marigolds, the yellow color, and the scent of the marigolds and the bright color were meant to summon the spirits. And so another thing that they do quite often is leave favorite foods and beverages of the departed, along with gifts and possessions of the deceased. So we'll see that when we go over to the El Campo Santo Cemetery. We'll see some of the possessions that they have left at the grave. So let's continue on. If you ever get over here, the Temecula Olive Oil Company on our right offers free olive oil tastings. Their facility, their grove, Olive Grove, is up in Aguanga, kind of east of Temecula. Boy, they're really busy here. So here's some more calaveras here. I just love them. I think they're so cool. There's a bunch more over here too. Here's another bolero here. But very colorful, colorful dresses, colorful skulls, colorful hats. Just everything about it is kind of fun. You guys go ahead. And so you can see how they've got some of the calaveras looking over the Fiesta de Reyes restaurant. So if you sit out here in this area, you're surrounded by calaveras, and you can dine. They're going to have these calaveras here, I believe, until like mid-September or mid-October, mid-November. Ugh. Now, some of you probably know Carrie Belial that works for us. She loves this place, Street Tacos, 2 for $6. She says she always tells her groups to come here, and I'm gonna have to come here and try it sometimes. But you can get 2 tacos for $6, and she said they're pretty substantial tacos, so a really good deal. You can watch them make them right here, kind of Mexico City style street tacos. So you can see we just kind of did a circle through Fiesta de Reyes. Here's another statuary, floral plant statuary. What do they call those? Topiaries? Yeah. So we're back where we started at Rose's tasting room. This is really nice, by the way. They have the patio set up with tables, and you can come here, and they have flights of wine and beer, and it's all local. So that's what's cool about it, that it's all local. Okay, so we're going to head up to Heritage Park now. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? We were going to scoot over here, weren't we? We're just going to show you a little bit. We're kind of on the perimeter of Old Town State Historic Park, and as long as we're this close, I figured we'd duck into the parking lot so I can tell you a little bit about one of my favorite buildings here. So everything to the right is, again, Fiesta de Reyes. That's where we just were. And so there's another entrance just ahead of us to the right, so you can kind of enter from the side if you want to. Just ahead of us, this building here, the Cosmopolitan Hotel, has a really interesting story. It was actually a private home to Juan Bandini. He built this in 1827, actually finished it in 1829, and it's right across the way from Casa de Estudillo, another famous adobe. And so Juan Bandini lived here for several years, and eventually this property was acquired by Albert Seeley. He operated a stage line, a horse-drawn stage line between San Diego and Los Angeles. Can you imagine going by horse and stage from San Diego to LA? So anyway, he turned this into a stagecoach stop and later a hotel. He actually added the second story. And so this was round about, let's see, what would that be? Well, it was before it'd be in the 1800s, before the train came through here. Train came here like in about the 1880s, and so 1870 to 1880 is when they had a horse-drawn stagecoach that went from San Diego to LA. And this is really interesting because after Albert Seeley went out of business, because eventually everybody took the train, this became an olive canning factory for a while. And then finally, when Old Town State Historic Park was established in the 1960s, then this became part of Old Town State Historic Park. It kind of sat here. Eventually they restored it into a hotel, and it's got several period rooms where you can rent a nice room. They say it's haunted. And this is really cool over here to the right. During the renovation of this hotel, they were actually making adobe bricks and replacing some of the original adobe bricks to kind of shore up the original structure. So they're over here again making adobe bricks. I'm not sure what for, but in any case, it's kind of fun to see them making it, the bricks, because of course they're just sun-dried bricks. They're not put in any type of an oven, what have you. But back then, of course, the Mexicans, the Spanish, they would use the sandy soil with a little bit of clay, a little bit of hay or straw, and maybe even a little bit of horse manure or cow manure. Mix it all up, put it into forms, and let it dry for about a month, and you had a brick. And that's really how all of the structures were built originally, because we didn't have any trees back then. San Diego isn't blessed with trees naturally. So we're going to make our way up to Heritage Park, which is just a couple of blocks ahead of us. We're going to stop in front of the Mormon Battalion. I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I'll tell you just a little bit more history while we're walking, because it's kind of interesting. If you talk to Kumeyaay natives, they will say that they were always here. They were always here. And of course, in 1769, the Spanish colonized California, and then in 1821, it became part of Mexico. And so, but you always hear the term Californio. All of these people that came here as Spanish settlers and later as Mexican settlers became what were called Californios. It was kind of like their own culture developed here. This was Alta California. It was a colony of New Spain. It was very remote, and they were here for 70 years. Some people were born here, right, as natives to this area. So they were referred to as Californios. And then in the 1840s and 1850s, a multitude of Americans arrived from the east. And so throughout the 1800s, there were a lot of different groups that came out here: Asians, blacks, Europeans. Each group that arrived gave San Diego their own particular kind of ever-changing mosaic, and the new cultures mixed with the cultures that were already here. And as a result, of course, we kind of have our own unique food, fashion, and art. And now just ahead of us, I should point out to you over here to the right, where you see the trolleys. Nice to see them operating again. You see the barn-like structure. That's the Old Town Theater, the Signet Theater. And they have yet to resume operations. And it's been a long time since I've been to a live theater show. Coming up here on the left-hand side, I'll kind of switch places with you here. Just beyond this apartment building with the tile roof would be the Mormon Battalion Historic Site. And Brigham Young was asked by the U.S. government for help during the Mexican-American War. And Brigham Young convinced his followers that it was the right thing to do, especially considering, they'd been treated badly. Mormons had been expelled from Ohio and also from Nauvoo, Illinois. And they were in Council Bluffs, Iowa at the time. And this would have been about 1846. And so the U.S. government asked them to put together a battalion of 500 men to come out here and help fight the war. And so they started out on July 16th, 1846, 500 men and about 32 women and some children. And they trekked 2,000 miles from Council Bluffs, Iowa, out here to San Diego. They didn't arrive until January of the next year, and by that time the war was over. But they were asked to lay out roads in addition to coming out here to help fight. But a lot of them stayed here in San Diego and helped build buildings and things like that. So this is a monument to the pioneers, the military men that came out here under Brigham Young, the Mormon Battalion as they were called. But if you ever come here, this is a really wonderful exhibit. You enter down at the end here, and they take you through an interactive exhibit. And when I say interactive, it's really crazy the way they do it, because you're watching a TV, you're watching somebody on TV, and all of a sudden it's like they turn into a live person. It's hard to explain. So anyway, they take you through what the trek was like for these Mormons. Can you imagine walking 2,000 miles for 6 months on foot, and then being asked to lay out roads behind you so that others could follow? I mean, that's quite an undertaking when you really think about that. So they're an important part of the history of San Diego and California. Fortunately, we didn't need their help fighting the war, because that was already a done deal by the time they arrived. Now, across the way we have another little known attraction in Old Town, one of my favorite things that I never get to show people. This is called Heritage Park, Victorian Village. So this is 7 different structures that date back to the Victorian era, 1880s. One church or temple, Jewish temple, we're going to see that one. And then there's 6 Victorian homes. And so we're going to walk up, kind of do a little circle so that you can see all these beautiful homes. I know that one of the houses used to be a bed and breakfast, but it doesn't look like they're using it for that anymore. And all but 2 of these structures, 5 of the 7 structures, have not had anything done on the inside to them. They're just strictly been renovated on the outside. But only the Temple Beth Israel right in front of us on the right, and the Sendless Cottage on our left have been renovated. I do think off in the distance the Tea Cottage down there too has been renovated on the inside. So let's talk a little bit about the Sendless Cottage here. So the Sendless Cottage was built in 1896 for Eugene Sendless, an employee of San Diego pioneer horticulturist Kate Sessions. And the house, without the amenities of gas, electricity, water, or sewer, is an example of dwellings that were occupied in the 1880s by working class people. And they used to have a museum on the west side here where you saw the people walk in. And so it doesn't look like it's open yet. But there's also public restrooms in this building, which is kind of an important thing to know. So over here to the right, Temple Beth Israel. This is San Diego's first synagogue, dating back to 1889. We'll get a better view from the front here. Constructed by the congregation Beth Israel, also became temporary quarters for many religious groups before establishing churches of their own. First services were held here on September 25th, 1889. The structure reflects the church styles of the late 1800s. The Temple Beth Israel now hosts a lot of weddings, receptions, bar mitzvahs, and they have a really large lawn where they can rent out to the public for special events. So we're going to just make a quick little dart through here. The interior is quite plain, actually. You have some stained glass windows here, but a little bit plain. You can see just very plain pews here. A few stained glass windows on either side. And they've got a kind of a choir loft back up behind us here with the stained glass windows also. But 1889 is when this was built. we didn't want to stay in there too long because if you lose us, this is probably going to be where you lose us, because we're kind of going back and forth between 1 and 2 bars on our phone. We're not getting very good reception here, so if you lose us, just try to sign back on. Here's another one of the Victorian mansions, the Sherman Gilbert House. Isn't that beautiful? Just look at the tower up there. The Sherman Gilbert House, this is called Stick East Lake style. Dates back to 1887, and it was first owned by John Sherman, the cousin of General William Sherman. And the Widow's Walk and circular windows, you see the Widow's Walk on the top there, are key elements of the first structure moved to Heritage Park in the spring of 1971. And from 1892 to 1965, sisters Bess and Gertrude Gilbert, patrons of art and music, brought internationally famous entertainers to receptions here at their home. Among the artists were people like Arthur Rubinstein. Now I should tell you that all of these structures that we're seeing, this is not their original location. They were in different parts of the city, and then they were all brought here and made into what is called Heritage Park. So let's keep going here. We've got a couple more. It gets even more grand as we make our way up the hill here. This next one here is called the Bushy Head House. Edward Wilkerson Bushyhead was an early San Diego sheriff, chief of police, and San Diego Union newspaper owner. He built this house as a rental, and it's an Italianate style. Contains double doors. You see the double doors in the front there with glass panels, tall protruding bay windows, and a low-pitched roof. Built in 1887. So this is my favorite one, this next one, the Burton House. I just think this would be a great place to have like a bed and breakfast village. You know, all of these could be a bed and breakfast. Yeah, this is the Christian House. So the Christian House, let me tell you a little bit about that. It was constructed by Hartfield Timberland Christian, the founder of an early San Diego abstract title company. It's built in the popular late Victorian design, characterized by a variety of chimneys, shingles, and a corner tower, and encircling veranda. You can see the veranda that goes around the outside. I always love the corner towers. That's a beautiful home. I love the colors. Colors are just gorgeous. And then over here to the right is a coral tree surrounded by a fence. Now if you look up on the hill here, what sits just behind us would be Mission Hills. I don't know how well you can see those homes up there behind the trees, but that would be Mission Hills up there. That would be the really ritzy. I can see the San Diego Bay and Point Loma. Yeah, we're going to be doing a tour there on, let's see, what day is that? The 22nd, I think, of November. We're doing Mission Hills. So I'll be showing you a lot of beautiful homes up there. Most of those homes are probably, $15 to $20 million homes. And this McConaughey house, named for John McConaughey, who founded the first scheduled passenger and freight service in San Diego County. He had 4 horse passenger stages and 6 horse passenger wagons that operated between San Diego and Julian. And you can see down below the sign here it says Coral Tree Tea House. So they have they had a little tea house in here and also gift emporium. But again, nothing is open here right now. But you can still see these things from the outside. So really, really nice. We didn't do that one, did we? Okay. So we got one more here to show you. I got so carried away with these two across the way that I forgot to tell you about this one. Boy, we're getting a nice breeze, aren't we? So this is the Burton house. The Burton house, pediments and dentile cornices inspired by classic sources mark this house. So you see the just above where it says 2465, kind of the lace work, and then the beautiful pillars, very elegant. Henry Guild Burton was a retired army physician. He built this home during a tramp, and that by the turn of the century began to eliminate decoration. So if you know anything about the Victorians' style, of course it was wildly popular like in the 1880s, 1890s, and then it started to fall out of favor in the early 1900s in favor of styles like Craftsman, the Spanish style, and then later on, of course, the Art Deco in the 30s. So let's go this way. We're going to cut across the lawn here. We have two really interesting things left to show you. We're going to talk to you about the Whaley House, which was voted the most haunted house in America by the Travel and Leisure magazine. And then we're also going to end over by the El Campo Santo Cemetery, the second oldest cemetery in San Diego. Now here's a trivia question for you guys. See if you can get this, and no Googling. What is the oldest cemetery in San Diego? El Campo Santo, which we're going to at the end of the tour, is the second oldest, and that dates back to 1849. But there's one that's older. Can anybody guess? Do you see anybody guessing there, Brianna? I'll give you a minute to guess. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of a delay. Some of the beautiful California pepper trees. So if you look, kind of pan back here, you can see the Temple Beth Israel up in the distance there, and they've got this huge green lawn area that they can use for private events like weddings and bar mitzvahs and things like that. So it's a wonderful place to come here. You see people coming here and just having a picnic. It's just very peaceful. A lot of people don't know about it, and I think it's one of the best things. Nope. Nancy says Rosecrans Cemetery. Nope. Anybody else have a guess? Yes. Who said that? Donna Seacoff. Yes, you got it. It is the Presidio. Very, very good. Yeah, within the Presidio walls, where the Spanish first, discovered California, they also had a cemetery where they buried their dead. So technically that is the first cemetery dating back to the 1770s. So we're going to kind of enter the backside of the Whaley House here in just a minute. I have done, I can't tell you how many fourth grader tours to this site, because of course they all like to be scared, but you see this beautiful California pepper tree, which ironically is not native to California. But if you grab one, you can see the little peppercorns on the bottom here. They kind of turn into like a pink color. Can you eat them? Yeah. Are they black pepper? No, they're not. A lot of times you'll see them combined with black pepper into like a gourmet pepper mix. But they're really not the black pepper that we're familiar with. But nonetheless, you can. They are edible. This trough over here on the right, back when Thomas Whaley built this house in 1857. Of course, this was when the main mode of transportation was horse and buggy. So this is where if people brought their animals to the property, they would water them here. At the time, of course, they had aqueducts that were coming off the hill, Presidio Hill, that brought water down here so that people would have water in the pueblo or the town down below. Across the way is the Creole Cafe. That's a little bit out of place, I would say, but a lot of people don't know anything about that. That's New Orleans style cuisine. Has absolutely nothing to do with the Whaley House, but I've heard good things about that. I've never eaten there before. But let's go around the front side of the Whaley House and I'll tell you a little bit about the Whaley House. You'll notice that it's, this is Greek Revival. Some of its superlatives is that it was one of the very first Greek Revival style structure in San Diego, the first two-story structure in San Diego, brick structure. It was built at a cost of $10,000 for Thomas Whaley, who was he owned a store, he had a courthouse here, he had a theater here, so he's kind of like was involved in a lot of different things. But this used to be a public hanging site. Doesn't that sound like a great place to build a house? 1857. This was a gallows. This is where people were brought to be hanged. So Thomas Whaley bought this in 1857, had this house built here, raised his wife Anna and their kids lived here. And during the course of their time here, 4 members of the Whaley family passed away in this house. And so for that reason, they say that, they see the ghost of Anna Whaley and some of the Whaley children appear. And so let's see if we can get a little closer look here. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Whaley house. But as I said, you can see in the front window here, it says General Store. This was a general store. There's also was a courthouse here, a theater up above. I mentioned 4 of the Whaley family died here, including Violet Whaley, one of the daughters, who got a divorce, which at the time, divorce was a no-no. You were scorned by the community if you got a divorce. And so she ended up killing herself, actually, and so in the house. And so this was opened as a museum in 1960. So if we come down here, you can see the plaque. Talks about Thomas Whaley building this house between 1856 and 1857. State registered landmark number 65. 75% of the furnishings are original. Named the #1 most haunted house by the Travel Channel. And people say that when they tour here, I've heard things, people say things like they could smell cigar smoke. They could smell fragrance of perfume that quickly dissipates. There's cold spots, there's lights flickering, there's windows and doors opening and closing by themselves. And so Yankee Jim Robinson, when this was Thomas Whaley's house, used to stay here, and he would come out on the landing up above here. We'll get a better view of it from the street here. But he'd come out on the landing and he'd smoke cigars. And so when people reported smelling cigar smoke, they were like, oh, Yankee Jim. Yankee Jim also got hung here. And I'm going to tell you that story here in a minute. But you can see the beautiful Greek Revival. Can you imagine 1857, this house being built here? This is, people were building adobe mud houses. And so for something like this to be built at that time would have been just, people would have thought, wow, that is really something. By today's standards, it's not really anything to write home about, but back then, of course, it was a big deal. Regis Philbin, he used to be a broadcaster here in San Diego for a few years. If you turn around, kind of get a nice view of the Whaley house. Maybe we come out in the street here a little bit, and you can see it a little bit better from this angle. But yeah, Regis Philbin in the 1980s, he heard all the rumors about this place, and he said, I'm going to go there and I'm going to stay overnight. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And he claimed to have seen Anna Whaley's ghost, and he got scared out and went home early because he scared him. So he scoffed at first, but he was a believer afterwards. So as you would imagine, ghost tours are very, very popular. Now, if you come down to Old Town and you want to have a good meal, I would definitely recommend these next two restaurants across the way. Old Town Mexican Cafe here. Really nice. I always send my bus tour groups here because they have a little sidebar that you can go into that's a little bit more casual. You can kind of just eat at the bar, or little cocktail tables if you want just a quick bite. Or you can go into their full restaurant and eat there. But they're famous, probably most famous for their carnitas, and they are family-owned restaurants. That's an important thing. They also have tortilla ladies that are making the homemade tortillas. I don't know if we can go across here. You can get a view at one of the tortilla ladies. But yeah, Old Town Mexican Cafe, they have their tortilla ladies making tortillas here too. The cozy little sidebar, the giant margaritas. They're open for breakfast as well. You can have chilaquiles there, which I've had before, really good. Rotisserie chicken's another thing. This is Cafe Coyote here, one of the ladies that are making homemade tortillas, and so you can buy them individually or by the dozen. And yeah, so this stretch is kind of famous for its restaurants. The tortilla ladies, you can buy tortillas from several different establishments. Cafe Coyote here on the right hand side, it's probably the highest rated Mexican restaurant of any of them in Old Town. Also family owned for over 30 years. It's been named Best Mexican Restaurant by the California Restaurant Association 15 times. It's won the Gold Medallion Award, which is very prestigious. The only thing I don't really like about Cafe Coyote is it's always super busy. But I would have to say that's a good sign, right? If it's always super busy, that means it's good. So, but they have their famous grand margaritas, $14.95 for one of their grand margaritas. But they have got carnitas plates, tequila lime shrimp, breakfast. They serve breakfast, and they also do Porto Nuevo style lobster. I wanted to go into here real quick. This is San Diego's Best. They have a really nice display in here. Day of the Dead merchandise. Careful here. So if you guys are looking for Day of the Dead merchandise, they have a whole section here devoted to Day of the Dead merchandise. And I think these shirts are kind of cute. I could see me wearing one of those. And so they have a couple sides here. So you can see the calaveras here. So, hello. I'm telling them all about your Day of the Dead merchandise.
Yes.
You remember me?
Yes, I remember you.
The virtual tour guy.
Oh.
Yeah, we're back here kind of doing a different version of Old Town, talking about Day of the Dead and all that stuff. So, yeah, so
Welcome back.
thank you. So I thought I would dart in here and show them your Day of the Dead merchandise. So yeah, a lot of really cute stuff here. Then across the way is Miguel's Cantina, and Miguel's Cantina is another really popular Mexican restaurant here. Of course, that is owned by the Brigantine Restaurant Group, and oftentimes whenever you see a Miguel's, there's nearby is a Brigantine restaurant. They've got two other restaurants now that are part of their chain, so you see clusters everywhere you go of Brigantine owned restaurants. I'm trying to remember the name of their new restaurant that they have. I just can't remember what it's called. Now this is kind of interesting. Over here on the left, in the window of this red building, is the Temecula Olive Oil Company. So I don't know if that means that they're going to be moving over here, or maybe they're opening another location, or maybe they're just advertising. Who knows? But we're going to cross over here so I can show you the El Campo Santo Cemetery. Let's see here. Over here is another kind of new restaurant slash bar called Tahona. And then just ahead of us is a new Italian restaurant, which is an interesting addition to Old Town Mexico. This is called Don Pietro, and it's very nice. They've got this really nice outside area. This is Sicilian cuisine, and they've only been open for, I think she said, a month. Talk about a bad time to open a restaurant, huh? I'm sure that wasn't part of their business plan. So across the way, we're going to see El Campo Santo Cemetery. Now, as we cross the street here, we're going to look for grave markers. There are a couple grave markers, well, several grave markers in the street here, but out on the sidewalk here, you can see this one here, grave site. So they have little grave site markers all along the sidewalk, even out onto the street. So you see the walls here for El Campo Santo Cemetery. They used to actually extend all the way across the street to where the Don Pietro restaurant is, but there was a horse-drawn stage line that came through here. Remember Albert Seeley? And so it came right through the middle of the cemetery. And then later on, they paved over, in the 1950s, they paved over San Diego Avenue, and this became a thoroughfare for cars. And so they basically paved over the cemetery. And so as a result, there's been a lot of people who have reported odd happenings, like leaving their car, coming back, and their car won't start. Or maybe their horn going off all of a sudden for no reason, things like that. And also, the cemetery itself is said to be haunted. I've read where right before dark, a woman in a white Victorian costume appears on the south wall, I believe. And then there's also a Native American lady that's dressed in black that appears at twilight as well. So anyway, haunted cemetery. You can see up here El Campo Santo Cemetery. It's the Holyfield, founded in 1849, our second oldest cemetery. 477 bodies buried here. This one's kind of interesting here. I love reading some of these epitaphs. This was Jesus, died 1879, 25 years old. And here's an excerpt from the Book of the Dead. December 15th, 1879, I have given a ecclesiastical burial to Jesus, Indian of 25 years, who died of a blow to the head without receiving the sacraments. They told me that he was completely drunk, and thus I command him to be buried near the gate of the cemetery. So if you don't know anything about these cemeteries, if you were a criminal or somebody that didn't have a lot of money, typically you were buried on the perimeter. You see out in the middle of the cemetery here, there's a lot of graves that have like a picket fence around them. Typically belongs to more society people that had money, and so they built a structure around the grave to protect it from animals. Perhaps the most interesting story is the story of James Robinson. Remember I was telling you about him? Over at the Whaley House, they could smell a cigar smoke. Well, he got arrested for stealing a rowboat, and he got sentenced to be hung in the gallows. And he actually thought that they were kidding. They were just trying to teach him a lesson, and they kept telling him that no, you're going to get hung. And so he did get hung in the gallows. And the gruesome tale is that the gallows were built for a much shorter person, and James Robinson was 6'4", and so when they removed the structure so that he would hang, his legs were dragging on the ground. And so he died a very gruesome death. But another thing that's really interesting, down here, Yankee Jim converted to Roman Catholic Church prior to his death. and thus his baptismal name of Santiago, which is Spanish for James. And then, so you see Santiago right there. And then this is another thing that's very disturbing. His godfather was Philip Crosswaith. You remember the guy that had the general store at the Whaley House? Well, anyway, Philip Crosswaith, his godfather, he was the deputy sheriff who gave the signal for his execution. Can you imagine? So anyway, that is a very gruesome tale of Yankee Jim, or Jim Robinson, who got hung in the gallows. Now here again, you see these are supposed to be marigolds. This is plastic, and you can see over here that they have both plastic marigolds and actually fresh marigolds. There's a piece of fruit there, apple, so apparently that person maybe liked apples. But again, the marigolds, the Aztec marigolds, they grow in the wild in Latin America, and they use those because of their bright color to attract the spirits, to summon the spirits, and also their scent, their odor. So we'll go around and we'll look at a couple graves here. Oh, you know what? I wanted to go over here. I always forget about Rose Serrano. This one's a kind of a weird story. One of the more elaborate graves with the wrought iron fence around it, and of course the marble tomb, which used to be vertical, but you can see it broke in half, so they put it down horizontal. But if you look at the date of Rose Serrano death, September 10th, 1869. But if you look on her sign, it says February 10th, 1869. So I guess the death records back then were a little bit questionable. Also, you can see that Rose Serrano was 21 years. You know, the really interesting thing at that time in the late 1800s, you know, the average age for death, life expectancy was about 38. And so for you to see somebody that was living into their 50s or 40s even, that was considered to be old age, you know. So things are really different these days. Let's see, take you to see a couple of other ones here. But yeah, see, again, you got the marigolds. You've got an apple over here. You've got an apple over there. They've cleaned out quite a bit of this from a couple of days ago. They had a lot of stuff, but typically during the Day of the Dead celebration, relatives will bring favorite foods and put them on the grave. Even some of their personal belongings they'll put on the graves as a remembrance to their dearly departed. So anyway, that is pretty much it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the tour, and thank you very much for joining me today. Again, next Wednesday, I'm doing a mystery tour, and I won't tell you too much. It's going to have kind of a veterans/patriotic theme. That's all I'm going to tell you, but I will tell you it's not Mount Soledad, okay? It's not Mount Soledad. So I'll just have to keep you in suspense, but that is a free tour. And then on Sunday, I'm doing the other side of Coronado. That's at 11 o'clock. We're also doing a live version, a live walking tour. So if you want to join me on a live walking tour where you're actually walking with me, that's at 2 o'clock. So you can get all the details on Day Tripper Tours website if you want to go on that with me on Sunday. So again, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Did you see any questions there? Did anybody have any questions? No? Okay. So thank you guys very much for joining me, and from Old Town, happy travels, bon appetit, and so long.